it's Kenzy Knoxx and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be painting this phenomenal painting right here of a palm tree, well basically looking up at a palm tree. And I apologize, this video is a bit long. I was following a tutorial that was a bit confusing and a little bit hard to follow. I may eventually do my own tutorial to make it a bit easier, but I was really happy with the results and I hope you will be too. So hold in there, or stay in there, hold on. It may take a while, but it's totally worth it, I promise, and you'll love your little palm tree painting. Hi everyone, it's Kenzy Knoxx and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I thought we would create a painting of us looking up at a palm tree, and so let's just jump on in and get started. So on our palette, let's just throw down some titanium white, some phthalo blue, some deep blue, some medium yellow, and maybe some green, and some red, and maybe some magenta and brown too. So go ahead and put those down on your palette and let's just start painting. I'm going to start off using my small little filbert brush. This is my favorite little guy right here. And the tutorial we'll be following today is called Phoenix Palm Tutorial by DebbiAvouxStudio, and you can find her on YouTube. And she starts off by taking a little bit of yellow ochre and white, or I'm going to take yellow ochre and white and start painting out the bottom of the palm tree and the object that we'd be looking up at. Let's see, so it starts, we're going to have this little round thing, a little short of the halfway point, so maybe like right around here, which I don't know why she would draw it there. Well, maybe it'll make sense. Maybe we'll move it over a little bit. It's just going to be this circular thing here. And then from that, we're going to have this little halfway oval thing, and then our palm tree stem, or our palm tree trunk, coming towards us, which will get thicker at the base than it is at the top. So I'm going to make this, I'm going to make this a little wider, I think. Oops. Let's see. Oh, we get the gist. We can fix that. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and paint to this guy. So rinse out your brush. Grab a large filbert brush if you have one. The largest one I have is, there it is. I found it. So I'm going to use this filbert brush right here. Get it nice and wet. I'm going to create some phthalo blue and some white. I'm going to make a nice little light blue color. Alright, and we're just going to start painting in our sky. And this sky won't have a gradient, so it'll all be the same color. And so we're just going to go right around that little globe and that little trunk thing that we previously painted in there. So go ahead and just plop that paint down and just cover up that canvas. Okay, for our next step, we're going to make a dark brown shade, and I'm going to also use this number 6 filbert brush. And I'm simply going to take a medium brown shade and add a little black to it just to make it a dark brown color. And it's more on the black side, you can see this is the color I'm going for. Just going to fill this in. I'm going to do the outside, the finer lines, with a bit more detailed brush, like a liner brush or a flat brush. I'm just filling on the inside with the filbert brush. And if you're good with lines with the filbert brush, you can go ahead and do that. Just make sure your brush is nice and wet so that your lines are straight. They're not like that. See that? That's what we don't want. I'm going to go up to the center area. And now I'm going to get my little 1/4 inch liner brush. Go ahead and get that wet. And pick up some of that brown color. And try my 1/4 inch angular brush. Go ahead and get that wet. Tap off any drips that you may have. And I'm just hoping that this brush will allow me to create straighter lines and just go over that yellow ochre and white color that we had made that we used to sketch out or draw in our little figurine. And that's why I typically don't like to sketch in objects. We could have easily created this over the blue, and it probably would have been a little bit easier if we went that method, but it's okay, no worries. I'm just going to try my best to cover this up, and if you go over or past the lines, that's fine too. Nobody's going to judge. Oh, I guess we're painting that whole round thing at the top too. So I'm just going to use my flat brush. Grab that brown color. And paint in this circular thing here. This is supposed to be the same color brown. Let's see, mix that up. I need a little more black in there. Okay, so I take some yellow ochre with a little red oxide or burnt sienna. I'll go with this color right here. Use my flat brush, and I guess we're just doing lines going outward. So we're now creating the palm fronds, or the basic leaf, the middle of the leaves of the palm tree right now, and I didn't realize that they were supposed to be thicker at the base than they are at the outside, but this method that I did actually ended up working out better for me, so you can follow my method or follow her method. Either way is fine. If you find yourself having difficulty with the paint sliding on your canvas, feel free to add a little bit of water, but not too much where it's dripping. I placed my palm fronds pretty much the same distance apart from each other, and just basically did it in a sunburst pattern, so just basically radiating out the palm fronds from the center. And I did the same method where I went from thin to thick all the way through, and I'm glad I did it this way because in the end it actually helped me out a lot, because you have to thicken up the base of the palm frond eventually. Typically I would speed up this process, but if you're going to be following along with me, I want you to be able to keep up pace, and I noticed hers was very sped up, and as such I couldn't keep up with her video and I had to pause it. So I will not be fast forwarding through any of this section, just because this is an important part of this painting and we want to make sure that we semi get it right. You can always fix any mistakes you make with acrylic, so don't worry if you make a mistake. If your line is messed up, just simply wet your brush and scumbling it along and wipe it off on a towel that is disposable, like a paper towel, and you can fix the line. If your palm fronds aren't lined up perfectly, that is okay too. Don't worry too much about this. There's going to be so much detail in this painting that it really does not matter. So once you're done your palm fronds, or you believe you're done your palm fronds, you can go back and add a few extra ones if you'd like. I decided to add a few extra that just in the areas that looked a little bare or a little more wide open or had more space to them. You don't have to do this if you don't feel. You can have as many palm fronds as you feel. It's really up to you. Just keep in mind that the more palm fronds you have, the more palm leaves where you're going to have to draw in, which is perfectly fine if you have a band brush, but if you're going to use a singular brush like a liner brush, it may take you a very long time. now that we've outlined the palm fronds that we've liked and the design that we've liked, we're going to go ahead and start in on that little ball thing and create some texture. And I started doing this and I didn't like it, so I painted over it. So don't even do this part yet. Instead, go over your palm fronds and let's re-add another little coat of that yellow ochre and red oxide color to them and really make them that color pop and make them a little bit thicker in size too. And I won't speed up this portion of the video because I do want you to paint along and go at my pace. So this will be in real time. I won't fast forward this, I promise. This painting is a little intricate, but you'll be so happy in the end, and I hope it will give you that relaxation and that really great feeling at the end of a painting when you're really happy with it. And so like I said, I'm just painting over another layer of that yellow ochre and red oxide color, and I'm taking each one of my palm fronds and I'm just thickening them up and making that color really stand out by adding layers of acrylic paint to them. And for this process, I believe I was using a 1/4-inch flat brush, but you can use an angular brush or any other size flat brush. You can use a filbert brush. You can use any sort of brush that you feel comfortable with. It's really up to you. If you find one brush isn't working, just try out a different brush. Lines are sometimes difficult for people, and you can also use a ruler if you need to. There's no one around you that's going to tell you you can't do that. You can do whatever you want. It's your painting. And so make it as perfect or not perfect as you'd like. Okay, great. So once you're happy with your palm fronds, we can now move on to the next step. So as we're wrapping up our palm fronds, I realized, well, first of all, I've painted in my little round ball thing because that just didn't look right. But second of all, the shape of that middle thing just didn't look right in comparison to the tutorial that I was watching. So I went back and created more of an oval shape rather than a circular shape because the palm tree will be going into the center of that shape and we're looking up at it at an angle. And so to make it more realistic, we kind of wanted it in a shape that's more similar to this shape than that first initial circular shape. And I'm also adding just another layer of that brown to the rest of my tree just to add a little bit of something. And then we'll just let this dry. And since I was doing this tutorial in real time, I realized that it was kind of confusing and very hard to follow because some of it was sped up and some of it wasn't. And the instruction, although it might have been clear in the video, while I was painting, I couldn't really follow along for some reason. I was having difficulty following along. So I just sped up the video and I wanted to have the end photo, reference photo, or whatever you call that available, as well as her real-time video in front of me just to make it easier. And that's something I recommend that you do as well because this painting is kind of confusing and it is slightly difficult. So make sure that you kind of skip ahead and look at what the final painting looks like and then come back to this point. So I'm going to use this small little filbert brush, which I don't even know what size it is, maybe like a 1 perhaps, but it is one of my favorite little brushes I use, and it's great for detail work. But anywho, so moving forward, remember that the light is coming from the left side. I don't know if that was mentioned earlier in her tutorial, but it's something I did not catch on until later on. And so I'm taking a little bit of yellow ochre, and we're creating these like staggered little shapes. I'm basically just dabbing my brush and making these ones on top larger than the ones going below it. And remember that the palm tree is going up into the center, so we don't want to go all the way around that little brown thing, which I have no idea what it is or what it's called. But something I did not do was create a lighter side and a darker side because I was unaware of the the sun, of the direction of the sun, and then it would actually impact the painting. But this is something that I actually fixed in the end, so go ahead and go around with the yellow ochre color that I'm using and just follow along as best as possible, and just try to keep these little lines that I'm creating, these little hyphens or dashes or whatever you want to call them, in this oval shape, and try to stagger them as they go, and remember to make them smaller and smaller in size. And we're going to continue down until we get almost to where the palm tree goes up into the center of the circular thing that we're creating. And I know if you looked up into a palm tree, you would realize what this is immediately. I just was not aware of what it was for some reason. I don't really know. And now you can see I'm trying to figure out where the palm tree actually ends up landing in the center of this little ball thing. So I'm trying to sketch out where I believe that it would meet the center of this thing. So I'm trying almost like a horseshoe shaped figure right there, just lightly sketching that in so I can later change it up if needed. And acrylic paint is very forgiving, so don't worry if you think you mess this up, because you can easily fix it. You can either paint it brown or just continue painting over it until you get it right. But this is the shape up right there. I think I've got it where I think it would meet this little round ball. And so now I'm going to go back and continue in drawing in those little staggered lines, making them smaller and smaller and smaller until they reach that little U-y shape that I created. Okay, great. And now I think we're done this part of the painting, or created the shapes that we're supposed to be creating, and we can move on to the next step. So now we're going to be creating texture on the tree, and we all know that palm trees have these little rings that go around them, and as they age, they get more rings and more rings, and they get farther apart as they get closer to us. So as they're higher up on the tree, they're going to be pretty close together, and I mixed a color of yellow ochre and a little bit of white, and I'm just going to be painting the left side of the tree where the sun is hitting, because the right side of the tree is going to be darker. We're going to use a different color for those side of the lines. And so I'm just going down the tree and marking out the lines where I think they'd be, and you can do this as close together or as far apart as you'd like. If you do go all the way over, if it's easier for you, that's fine too, because we can always paint over this. That's not a problem. I started doing this because I was having difficulty creating the shape that I needed to create, which for some reason I don't know why I was having difficulty creating these like U shapes. So I just kept going until forward until it finally worked out and I was able to create them. It gets easier and easier, I promise, as you go. So just take a breath, relax, and just paint these in as you feel that they would be. And you can even paint over it like I did. I just scribbled it out and I'm just starting over. No problem. If you need to do this too, go ahead and do this. If not, continue painting your little lines. I decided to let this area dry, and in the process of doing that, I picked up a little bit of red oxide, and I'm starting to tone the area of the shadow part of the tree, and also the area underneath too. This is all red, and we'll color it all different types of shades and colors. I'm just following the tutorial and hoping that it'll make sense in the end, so just follow along. I promise you'll have a beautiful painting in the end. And again, I'm just using a little bit of red oxide and just covering over some of the yellow ochre that's already been dried on my painting. So now I'm going to attempt to do my lines again on my tree. I decided to go with a round brush this time, something synthetic and a little bit more stiff in shape. And so I'm just picking up again some yellow ochre and white, and I'm trying to do these U shapes that I seem to have so much trouble with. But I'm giving it another shot, and I hope you do too. I hope your lines are coming out alright this time around. They were much better for me. It looks like I have a little red oxide in there. It really doesn't matter. You can do whatever colors you want, because this tree will be consisted of many, many colors. And if you skip forward in this tutorial, in her tutorial too, you'll see that the tree is made of many different types of browns and yellows and reds. And so don't worry too much about the color. Just focus more on getting the rings right and also the coloring right. So keeping the left side lighter than the right side. but you can always darken or lighten each side. So just focus on the shape of the tree that we're trying to create. On my tree, I decided to focus more on the right side of it because that would be the shadow side of it, and if I mess up on the rings, it would be a lot easier to cover than if I went on the light side, which would be the left side of the tree, where I'll be using lighter yellows and lighter shades of color. It would be definitely more difficult to cover up. So I'm just going down, trying to space them out properly. So remember, as they get closer to us, they'll be farther apart in distance. And this is something standard that you'll see on a tree. And it also creates the effect of distance, so it's something that's kind of important. But remember that we'll have lots and lots of different types of lines. You'll see me creating middle lines and side lines and just all lines everywhere. And we want lots of different colors and lots of texture on this tree. So don't worry too much about getting the spacing right, but also at the same time you kind of do want to focus on getting the spacing right. So sorry that this tutorial is a little more difficult than I expected it to be. I thought it would be a nice, simple, easy tutorial. I should have just taken the end photo and done it myself. It's a lot harder to explain someone else's process than your own, so I apologize for that in advance. Now that I feel comfortable with the right side of my tree, I'm going to go on to the left side of my tree using a little bit of yellow and white mixed together. And I know this is a light color, it's a little intimidating, but it's okay, you'll be alright, especially if you've already established your lines on the right side. Just continue those lines on over to the left side and you'll naturally create the tree that's lit up on the left side, and you'll be very happy with your results. If you're having trouble with your paint gliding on your canvas, go ahead and just add just a little bit of water to your brush. If you add too much water, you might get a drip on your painting, which might ruin your painting, so be careful of those drips. Everybody hates those drips. And since we all know that acrylic paint dries darker than it is wet, I'm going to create many layers of paint on this tree. So I'm just going back over those rings I created on the right side with the same color of that red oxide and yellow ochre mixture, and this will just make these lines stand out just a little bit more. For this part of the tutorial, all the lines I'm creating are consisted of either yellow, red oxide, brown, or black. So just keep that in mind. You want to mix up those colors and put those down on your canvas. For this part of the tutorial. Further along, we'll add some different shades and colors. So once I'm done with the main lines of my tree, I'm going to go in and add these semi-lines that are just adding texture to my tree, but they don't really go around the entire tree. And so we have our main rings, and now we're just adding texture to it that are different colors and tones and shades. And this same shading process is going to be applied to this top circular thing where we keep the lighter tones and colors on the left side and the darker shades and colors on the right side, so that we create a natural shadow on the right side. Just remember that when you're creating your lines, as we gradually move over to the left side, that they should be lighter in shade. So whether that means adding more white or adding a different mixture of color to create lines, they just need to be lighter on the left side than they are on the right side. It's also a good idea to add layers to your lighter tones and colors, well, actually all the colors. When you add layers of color to acrylic paint, it really makes them pop and stand out. And if you only have one layer of acrylic paint, sometimes it just tends to fade into the background. And for the highlighted portion of the tree, the colors and tones of colors you should be using should consist of mixtures of yellows, browns, and reds, and just yellow ochres and white too. You can use white if you'd like. And make sure you're only bringing the highlighted color over to maybe halfway across the tree, but even halfway is a bit far because you want that mid-tone shade in the middle of the tree. And as you get to the top of the tree, I'm also going to add some lighter shades to the left side of that round thing out top. I really wish I knew the name of it, but I don't. But I'm going to focus the lighter colors on the left side and the darker colors on the right side to create natural shadow effect that we need. And once you think you're done with the left side, you can move on to the middle and add some mid shades to the middle of the tree too. That helps to create a more realistic effect, to make the tree look more real 3D. And if you're focusing on the left side like I was, trying to keep that side lighter, I'm now going to go back to the right side and use those dark tones that we previously used, and just adding layers of acrylic paint to the painting so that the colors remain vibrant and bright. And I know I keep repeating myself, or I sound like a broken recorder essentially, but you really do need to make layers of acrylic paint, or else your paint will just kind of fade, or just really it'll probably turn into a shade that you're not looking for. So the more you layer, the more likely the color will be that you want it to be. So the color will look like it is wet when it is dry. And so now once we're done highlighting and shadowing our tree, I'm just going to go back with that brown black color and go around the top area of that round thing where the palm fronds will be coming from, and just adding a little bit more thickness to that area. I'm also going to take that color into the center of that round thing to create more of a shadow, and along the tree stem too, or the tree trunk, and create more shadow areas. At this point, you can take a look at your tree and determine whether or not you need to add more shadow colors or highlight colors or midtones to your tree to make it look more 3D or more realistic. It's really up to you. You could leave it as is, or go back in and add certain colors in certain spots that you want, or just overlap the acrylic so that the color really stays put, because acrylic does need to be layered upon for it to really show and keep its color. So it is good to create layers if possible. so now that I think I'm happy with my tree, I'm going to take this light white and yellow mixture and add a long highlight along the tree where the sun would just be kissing just the edge of the tree. And I'll also be adding a shadow layer on the right side of the tree where the tree would really be shadowed with that dark brown and black color. And I'm also going to add some highlights with this yellow color onto the left side of that round thing just to bring in some sunlight to this area. I'm also going to take that light yellow color and just outline where the tree meets that brown thing up top, I guess you could call it, and just highlight that area just a little bit more so it stands out from that round thing. And as I just highlighted the left side of the tree, I'm going to also darken or shadow the right side with that dark brown color. And now we get to use the best brush ever, which is this fan brush. And we're going to start creating our palm trees leaves, which is super exciting. So I'm using a mini fan brush. A larger fan brush might be possible to use if you know how to use it well. I do not, so I don't know how to explain to you or recommend how to use the brush. But essentially we're going to be picking up a light green lime color, or do we pick up a dark green color? Oh, we're starting off with a light green lime color. This is kind of confusing because I'm used to starting with dark colors and then highlighting them. But since I guess we're on the underside of the tree, we'll start with the highlights and then we'll deal with the shadows. So I'm using like an apple tart green, and I'm just making the leaves here. And so if they're going in one direction on one side, they're going to go in the opposite direction on the other side. Or not the opposite direction, but they're both going to flow towards the same angle. So if they're aimed towards the right, both sides of the leaves should go to the right. If they're aiming to the left, both sides of the leaves should aim to the left. And unfortunately, if you created a ton of palm fronds like I did, you're going to have a ton of palm fronds to add leaves to. And make sure you do both sides of these palm fronds, or else it'll become apparent that you didn't going forward. So I will speed up this portion of the painting in hopes that you might have a little bit less palm fronds than me. But if not, you can always just pause my video, or you can fast forward it to when I'm done with this color and moving on to the next color. And for some reason I found it useful to kind of jump around with the palm fronds, or just do one angle first and then go back to do the other angle afterwards. I'm not sure if this is the same for everyone, but this was just for me. So basically I'm placing my fan brush down and kind of flicking it off in the direction that I want the leaves to go to. So this is a very simple action. You put your fan brush down and you pull and flick, pull and flick. So once you're done with your bright green palm fronds and leaves or whatnot, we're going to go in with a very dark color green, and this is only going to be used on the right side of the tree, and these are going to be the most shadowed portions of the tree, and you're going to have to do this all over again, so you're going over those highlighted palm leaves that you created. So I'll speed this portion up too, and I'll slow it down when we change up the color a little bit. Remember, this is the darkest color green, and only on the right side. Okay, so once you're happy with your palm fronds and leaves, we're going to switch up to a medium shade green, and this will be done on almost all the leaves on the left side, and we will be re-highlighting the leaves too, so don't worry about that. This shade of green is more like an olive green, so if you have an olive green, that's great. If not, you can create this color by using black and yellow until you're satisfied with the shade of green that you get. And you can also add a yellow a little bit of green to that yellow and black mixture to get a little bit more green shade, but olive green is the color we're going for this step of the process. So once we're done filling in our palm fronds, now we're going to actually shadow our palm fronds. So on the left side, just add a little bit of red oxide, and this is going to add a shadow, just a half of the palm frond. And so we're going to make them slightly thicker, or in my case, I don't have to. I'm just shadowing half of the palm frond. And then after we're done shadowing our palm fronds, we'll go back over with a little yellow oxide and white and highlight the other side of the palm frond to make it more 3D-like and more realistic. You can see here I start carrying the color of the palm frond down the entire shaft of the palm frond, and that's because when I went through with my fan brush, I did cover up some of my palm fronds, which is perfectly fine. I'm just adding another layer of color to highlight and show that the palm frond exists. So that's fine if you do it, it's okay if you don't. Either way, it's up to you. I'm also not sure if I mentioned this yet, but I am using my mini little filbert brush, which I believe is like a number 1 or maybe number 2. You can also use a liner brush, or you can use an angular brush. Those two brushes might be great options for this step. This velvet brush is actually a fantastic makeup brush that I had in one of my collections. Okay, so once you've gone around and you've highlighted or shadowed your palm fronds, you can go back over and do some final touches. The palm fronds are supposed to be thicker at the base than they are at the ends of the little palm frond shaft thingy. Just keep that in mind. And they do look like a little triangle sort of thing. It's hard to explain. I don't know how to really explain it to you actually. It kind of looks like a triangle coming down towards you, but that's just the shape it is. But if you go down your palm fronds and you notice that any of them are missing leaves, like I can see one little mistake that I don't think I shadowed in the palm fronds, you can always go back over them. It's not a big deal, so don't worry about that. You can always fix acrylic painting. That's why I love acrylic paints, because they're so easy and they're so forgivable, and you know, any mistake you make, or we don't call them mistakes, we call them happy accidents, right? So any happy accident you make, you can turn into something wonderful, or change it up, or turn it into something else, or even just remove it altogether. And so now I'm just adding a little more yellow oxide to the palm fronds, just so that that color stands out a little bit more. You can already immediately see the difference from one layer of the color compared to two layers of paint. It really does make a difference. Okay, so once I've gone around and touched up my palm fronds with the second layer of coating, I'm now going to add a highlight to the left side of each palm frond. So I'm taking that yellow oxide, adding a little yellow to it and a little bit of white just to lighten it up just a little bit. And I'm going to highlight the opposite side of the palm frond that I shadowed. And I'm going to go through all of them and do the same process over and over and over again. Okay, excellent. So now that we're done highlighting our palm fronds, I'm just going to go back over the palm fronds again with like a red oxide and yellow ochre color, just so they stand out a little bit more. I know that when I painted in my palm leaves, I did go over the palm frond stem, or whatever you call that itself, which is perfectly fine, but I just really wanted the stem to stand out from the leaves. So I'm just adding another coat of acrylic paint just real quick. And as I move over to the shadowed area, you can tell that I picked up a darker shade of that brown and black color to not highlight, but to paint over the palm fronds again. But I want these to be shadowed, so I'm just adding a darker color to the palm frond stems. Now that I'm done with that, I'm going over the palm fronds that are in the shadowed area of my tree, and I'm just darkening those up just a little bit more. And since I'm already working with this dark brown color, I thought I would add just a little bit of dabs here and there on the shadowed portion of that ball thing that's at the top of the palm tree. I'm also going to take this dark brown color, this black and brown color, and just add another layer or two of acrylic paint to the shadowed area of my palm tree, just to give it some more character and make that color pop. Okay, now I'm going to make this blueberry frost color, which I love to death. And this color is typically made by using cobalt blue and white. And of course, I don't have cobalt blue right now because I'm not in my studio. So I took some deep blue and I mixed some white and I took some other blues and tried to make as close as I could to that blueberry frost color that I love. And I'm using that to basically highlight my shadowed areas. And this is a great color to do this with. And a lot of artists use this method to create shadows, or not shadows, but to create highlights in the darker areas of their paintings. And it looks a lot lighter when it's wet than when it dries. Just keep that in mind. It looks a little white right now on this painting or in this video, but I promise you it's not white. It's a blue, purpley, bubbly, or not bubbly, but blue, purpley berry color. Okay, so once we're done with that blueberry frost color on our tree, we're going to go and add a little bit of that to our palm fronds and just add a little bit of a shadow light. I don't know what this is called, but it works out so well. It looks so beautiful in the end. I don't know if it's from a reflection from the sun. That's probably not the sun, from the sky. So supposedly this tree is sitting in some water. It would have a reflection of the sky onto it, and that would be this blueberry frost color. So once we're done with our gentle addition of that blueberry frost color, we're going to go back to highlighting our tree with a bright white yellow shade, and we're going to start at the top of that little ball thing and highlight that portion, and then really keep the top of the tree really highlighted with some bright whites and some bright yellows and bright oranges and coral colors. And we want that to be the brightest portion of our tree, so as you get higher up, the brighter it should be. And since we're working with this color already, I'm just going to take this and highlight some of the palm fronds again. Okay, so now that we're done with that, we're going to take our fan brush again, and we're going to make a color of yellow and white, and we're just going to add some highlighted leaves on just some of the palm fronds in the brighter area of our painting, so on the left side only. Okay, so now that we've wrapped up highlighting our palm fronds on the left side, we're going to go ahead and grab that dark green color and go back over just some of the palm fronds on the shadowed side of the tree, or the right side of the tree. And now taking that marsh green color, that medium green color, we're just going to add some palm leaves just to some of the highlighted portions of the trees to create a shadow-like effect. We're also going to grab some of that dark green a little bit later on and highlight some of the darker palm fronds as well with some darker leaves, because layers are our friends and we need to layer the acrylic paint so that it really holds true to its color when it dries. As we finish painting in our last palm fronds, I would like to say thank you for visiting my YouTube channel, and I hope you really enjoyed it. I know I did. I think this painting came out wonderful, and I'm sure yours did too. Please remember to like my video if you liked it, and to subscribe to my channel too, so that you can keep up to date with new videos that come out. So until next time, I'll see you guys later. Okay, bye!